thank you. The comment and the text of the article are fairly self-explanatory. This is something that we tried to do last year, and because the original vehicle for this sunsetted, we tried to create this vehicle last year. The legislature asked us to do it slightly differently. We're back to bring it back. So, thank you.
Mr. Loretti?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Chris Loretti, Precinct 7, and one of the proud 6 who voted against this last year and who will vote against it again this year. And I hope we get more than 6 people who vote against it this year. This article is completely unnecessary. In past years, prior to last year, there were certain things in state law that required home rule legislation in order to affect the desired results. The state legislature changed that. We didn't need to pass this last year. This article in no way affects the amount of rents we will receive for wireless leases. They will be exactly the same whether this article passes or not. The only thing it does is it sets up a separate account. And what we're doing is we're saying to our state legislators, you've got to go and spend the effort to create this special account on our behalf because we're not adult enough to track funds ourselves. You know, I think our the Finance Committee, I think our Capital Planning Committee does a great job in allocating funds for specific purposes, and they're entirely capable of doing that for the wireless lease proceeds. So I'm going to vote against this because, as I say, it isn't necessary, and I think we ask enough of our state legislators. They spend way too much time on this type of local legislation, and it is simply a waste of effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to this article? Mr. McCrory, I'm sorry, Hugh.
I'll be very brief. This article crossed my... I had a similar question in my mind last year when this article came before us, and I see it's come up again. We're trying to streamline our finance department, but yet the money for these antennas doesn't go into the general fund, it goes into a special fund for parks and maintenance. I mean, is this real? Why doesn't this revenue go into the general fund? And I urge you to not to support this article. Thanks.
Did you wish an answer to that question, Mr. McCrory?
If someone can answer why the revenue does not go into the general fund, I'd be very interested to hear that.
Do you have
I can take it offline.
Answer to that?
Adam Chapdelaine, Town Manager. This fund was created, I believe, 10 or 12 years ago based on a vote at town meeting in order to set aside this antenna lease revenue to support capital expenditures on parks and recreational facilities. So annually, you may see in the capital budget an offset coming out of this fund appropriated by town meeting to support expenditures to upkeep and to renovate and reconstruct parks and recreational facilities. So that's why it was created. Town meeting sees it. It's not spent without town meeting, looking at its expenditures through the capital plan and the capital appropriation at town meeting every year. So I don't know if Joe Conley would like to speak to some of the projects in the capital budget. I know we'll get to the capital budget on Monday evening. But.
So that's the history of it. Why is it still the case? I guess is really what I'm asking. And
it's still a mechanism. It's still a mechanism that's there to be able to support continued investment in our parks.
But we already invest in our parks. I mean, this isn't the only fund that we use to invest in our parks, correct?
If this wasn't available as an offset to the capital budget, but there would be less money that could be spent in the capital budget, and decisions would have to be made to either invest less in parks or other potential town and school facilities.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Ms. LaCourte.
Annie LaCourte, Precinct 15. I'd like to speak to something that Mr. Loretti said. I have a couple of questions that I think might clarify something that I think is, that I understand differently than he does. It is true that funds that go into the general fund may be used for operating costs. At the end of the year, if we have not spent our full budget, those funds then become free cash, have to be certified by the state, and rebudgeted. And my understanding as a selectman was that these kinds of funds that are set aside for a special purpose have to be dealt with differently in order to avoid those monies simply rolling into the general fund and being generally appropriated. That yes, we could track them in the accounting system in some way, but it would not be quite the same as what we are trying to accomplish here. And the intention is that the money go from a particular revenue stream to a particular purpose, similar to our revolving funds. Could perhaps somebody from the Finance Committee speak to whether or not I'm right about this assumption, and whether or not it would be more difficult for us to segregate these funds if we didn't do it in this way and use them for the purpose town meeting intended them for 12 years ago?
Mr. Tosti, is her assumption correct?
No, what Ms. McCourt said is inherently accurate. We have a set percentage of the total amount to be raised that is appropriated each year by this body in the capital budget. And if there wasn't a certain amount of money coming in from this antenna fund for parks, then we wouldn't be able to spend as much money on the parks. So yes, you are accurate.
So essentially what town meeting did is they said, we're creating a revenue stream based on something that suddenly became possible when cell towers and antennas became a thing that actually existed. And we want to be sure if we're going to give up whatever it is we're giving up to allow the use of public lands to put up these towers, so on and so forth, that we dedicate the return we get for that to a specific purpose. And I suspect that this was a specific purpose, the support of park maintenance and capital projects in the parks, that they felt was easily cut when the budget is under pressure, and that they wanted to protect it, and that was the point of this. And I think it's a point that was well taken at the time and probably still is. So I'm in support of the article, and I urge you to be in support of it as well.
Mr. McCabe?
Harry McCabe, Precinct 21. The correct answer to the question is because when this program started, the St. Paul's Lutheran Church came to us and said, if you will allow us to put antennas on our church, we will make a contribution to the town for the town's parks and recreation program. That's the answer. These other answers are subsequent to that event. From that time on, it's just history. That's why the money is being put aside for parks and recreation.
Thank you for that history lesson. Mr. Deist? Okay. That was John Deist, Precinct 13, moving the question. All in favor of moving the question, please say yes. Yes. Opposed? Okay, debate is terminated. We have before us a recommended report of the Board of Selectmen. All in favor, please say yes. Yes. Opposed? No. In my opinion, it's a pause.